My girlfriend of 5 years asked for a break to find herself. I kicked her out of my house in 3 days. She dated other men, lost her job, and came back crying on her knees. But I shut the door, and now I'm living my best life. I'm 32 years old, work in it, own my house, and honestly, I never thought I'd have to tell this story because I always believed things with Isabella were going well. We'd been together for 5 years and everything seemed to be in place. You know, we had routines, plans. We talked about the future in that casual way couples do when they assume they're going to be together forever. But turns out I was living in a completely different reality than she was, and I realized that one random Tuesday night while we were eating pizza in my living room, Isabella was 29 at the time, worked in marketing for a mid-sized company, and she was always one of those people who seemed to have everything under control. Like, very organized, very focused on her career, and I admired that about her. We met at a mutual friend's party when I was 27 and she was 24. We connected almost immediately because we were both kind of nerds, liked the same shows, had that sarcastic humor that not everyone gets, and basically we became inseparable within weeks. She moved in with me about a year and a half into dating, and honestly I thought we'd eventually get married, have kids, that whole traditional vision of the future I'd never imagined with anyone else. The thing is that Tuesday night, we were watching some show on Netflix, me with my pepperoni slice in one hand and the remote in the other, when Isabella paused the program and said, "I need to talk to you about something important." And I, like an idiot, thought she was going to tell me she wanted to adopt a cat or something, because her tone wasn't dramatic or anything. It was more like nervous, but not alarming. You know what I mean? So I said, "Sure, what's up?" And she went quiet for a moment that felt eternal, and then she dropped it. "I think we need to take a break." I literally just sat there with the pizza halfway to my mouth, processing those words. Because a break? After 5 years living together? I asked her what exactly that meant, and she started with all that verbal diarrhea about I need to find myself, I need to explore who I am without being in a relationship. I feel like I lost myself along the way. All that garbage people say when they basically want to sleep with other people, but keep the relationship as a backup plan. I'm not stupid, I have enough friends who've been through this. I've seen enough Reddit posts to know exactly what it means when someone asks for a break. And honestly, in that moment, I felt more disappointment than sadness. Because I thought, really? After all this time, you're going to come at me with this game? I told her straight up, "Okay, Isabella, you can take all the break you want, but if you're going to do it, you're not going to do it from my house." And she looked at me like I'd said something completely irrational, like with her eyes wide open and her mouth hanging, and she said, "What do you mean by that?" And I explained, "Look, this is my house. I pay the mortgage, and I'm not going to be your safety net while you decide if you want to be with me or not. So, if you really want this break, you're going to have to pack your things and leave." I think she thought I was going to beg her to stay, that I was going to make a whole drama. But honestly, in that moment, something in my brain clicked, and I realized I wasn't going to allow her to treat me like an option. Isabella started getting defensive, saying I was being unreasonable, that she just needed time to think, that it wasn't necessary for her to leave. But I stood firm. I told her, "No, this doesn't work like that. You can't have both things, either we're together or we're not. But I'm not going to sit here waiting while you decide if there's something better out there." And she tried to turn it around, saying I wasn't supporting her, that I didn't understand what she was going through. And I just told her, "You have until the weekend to get your stuff out, because this is Wednesday, and I'm not going to live with someone who has one foot out the door of the relationship." She called her sister that same night, crying and saying I was throwing her out on the street. Like she was the victim in all this. And her sister came the next day to help her pack. I went to work that day because, frankly, I didn't want to be there watching all the drama, and when I came back in the afternoon, half the house was empty. There were spaces on the shelves where her books used to be. Her side of the closet was completely empty. The bathroom looked weird without all her beauty products. And honestly, I sat on the couch and had a beer thinking, well, this is what it is now. I didn't cry or anything. I guess because I was more angry than sad, like mad at myself for not having seen the signs that this was coming. Looking back, I think I should have noticed certain things. The last few months, Isabella had been on her phone more than usual, had started going to the gym more often and dressing up more for work, and there were one or two times she came home late with kind of flimsy excuses about happy hours with coworkers. But I trusted her, basically. And I wasn't going to become that jealous boyfriend type who checks phones or makes scenes. So I just assumed everything was fine. How naive, right? The first week after she left was weird. The house felt very quiet, and my routines were all messed up because many of them involved Isabella. We used to cook together on Sundays, watch certain shows on certain days, we had our rituals, and suddenly all that was gone. Derek, my best friend since college, came to stay with me that first weekend, brought beer and pizza, and basically forced me out of the house. We went to a sports bar, watched a game neither of us really cared about, and he told me something that stuck with me. He said, "Look, James, I know it hurts and all that, but dude, you just saved yourself years of being with someone who clearly wasn't as committed as you were. Better it happens now than when you're married with kids." And he was right, honestly. What did bother me was that Isabella hadn't had the balls to be honest with me. If she had come and told me, "Look, I met someone else," or "I'm not in love with you anymore," it would have been horrible, but at least it would have been honest, you know? But this whole "I need to find myself" thing was so cowardly, so manipulative, because basically she was trying to keep her options open while exploring what else was out there. And I wasn't going to be part of that game. About 2 weeks passed and I started hearing things around. I have a neighbor, Helen, who's like 60 years old and basically is the FBI of the neighborhood. Finds out about everything that happens with everyone. And one day I run into her when I'm taking out the trash and she tells me, "James, I saw Isabella the other day downtown with a guy. They looked very lovey-dovey." And I just told her, "Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know, Helen," and went inside my house. It didn't surprise me, honestly, but it did confirm what I already knew, that this whole break thing was to have freedom to go out with others without feeling guilty. Derek also told me that one of his coworkers had seen her at a bar with a different guy, like very flirty and holding hands, and I just laughed because I thought, well, at least she's being consistent. I didn't feel jealous or anything. I felt more like a kind of relief at having made the right decision not to allow her to do all this while living in my house and using my stuff. Imagine if I had let her stay. She'd be coming home at midnight smelling like another guy's cologne while I pretended everything was fine. No thanks. I prefer my dignity intact. About 3 weeks into all this, I get a text message from Isabella. It was a long message, like one of those she clearly wrote and rewrote several times, saying she missed me, that she'd been thinking a lot, that she wanted us to talk, blah blah blah. I responded, "Okay, we can talk. I'll see you at the park near your work Saturday at 2, because I wasn't going to let her come to my house. I didn't want to give her that familiarity, that comfort of being in the space we'd shared, because I knew exactly what was going to happen. Saturday I get to the park, and she's already there, sitting on a bench, and when she sees me she stands up and tries to hug me, but I just take a step back and tell her, "Hi, Isabella," and we sit down like half a meter apart from each other. She looked good. Honestly, had lost some weight, probably from stress or from going out so much, was wearing new clothes I didn't recognize, and had that look of someone who's trying really hard to impress. She started with the whole apology, saying she'd made a mistake, that she realized how much she loved me, that she wanted us to try again, all that garbage. I let her talk without interrupting her, because I wanted to hear how far she was going to go with her excuses, and, when she finished, I stayed quiet for a moment and then told her, "Isabella, I appreciate that you're being honest now, but the answer is no." And she looked at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing, and started with, "But James, we can work on this. We can go to couples therapy." I changed. I know what I want now. And I just shook my head and told her, "Look, you wanted your break, you took it, you did what you wanted to do. Clearly it didn't work out like you expected, and now you want to come back. But I'm not your plan B. I'm not the safe option you return to when things don't work out like you thought." She started crying, saying I was being unfair, that she never said I was her plan B, but I stood firm. I told her, "Isabella, if you really loved me and valued me, you never would have asked for that break to begin with. The fact that you did tells me everything I need to know about how you really feel about me." And I stood up, told her I wished her the best in her life, and left. She yelled my name like twice as I was walking away, but I didn't turn around. I just kept walking to my car and left. That night, I packed all her stuff that was still in my house. Little things she'd left behind, or that I'd kept thinking maybe she'd need them. Put them in 2 boxes, and the next day I took them to her sister's house. I rang the doorbell. Her sister opened the door. I gave her the boxes and told her, "Here are Isabella's last things. Have a good day," and left. There was no drama, no discussion. I just closed that chapter completely. What happened next was something I didn't expect at all. About 6 weeks after everything exploded, I get a message from a number I didn't know. It was a guy who introduced himself as Aaron, and he was telling me we needed to talk about Isabella, that he had information I should know. Honestly, my first reaction was to think it was some kind of scam or unnecessary drama, but something made me respond to him and I agreed to meet him at a downtown cafe. I get to the cafe and there's this guy, Aaron, about my age, looks normal, nothing special, and we sit down and he starts telling me his story. Turns out he'd been dating Isabella during the last weeks of our supposed break, and she'd told him she was single, that she'd ended a long relationship months ago, a whole made-up story. They were seeing each other often, going out to dinner, basically acting like they were a couple, and then suddenly she disappeared for a few days, and when she came back she was weird, distant. Aaron found messages on her phone. Yeah, seems he is one of those who checks phones, where she was telling someone else that she missed them and had made a mistake, and when he confronted her, she admitted I existed, but told him I was the one who wouldn't let her go, that I was obsessed with her. More lies, basically. Aaron showed me screenshots of conversations, showed me photos he had with her, and basically proved to me that Isabella had been playing both of us at the same time, telling us different things, keeping both of us as options while she decided which one suited her better. And the craziest thing is that when I rejected her at the park, she went back to Aaron acting like I was the bad guy in the story, like I'd treated her horribly and she was just looking for comfort. Aaron realized all the inconsistencies in her story, did his research. Apparently, he looked up my name on social media and found enough to confirm she was lying, and decided to contact me because he felt I deserved to know the full truth. I thanked him for telling me, told him I was sorry. He'd also been a victim of Isabella's manipulations, and basically we said goodbye with a handshake and a mutual understanding that we both dodged a bullet. It's weird, right? 2 guys who didn't even know each other, united by having been deceived by the same woman. After that meeting, I felt almost vindicated, because any tiny doubt I might have had about whether I'd been too hard on Isabella evaporated completely. It became crystal clear I'd made the right decision. The next few days were a festival of text messages and missed calls from Isabella. At first, they were calm messages like, "Hi, how are you?" Then they became more urgent. "I need to talk to you, please. It's important." And eventually they turned into long paragraphs where she admitted everything. Said she'd been stupid, that I was the love of her life, that she was willing to do whatever it took to fix things. I didn't even respond to most of them, honestly, because what was there to say? She showed who she really was, and I wasn't interested in giving her another chance to hurt me. But Isabella didn't give up easily. No, sir. About 2 weeks after Aaron contacted me, on a Thursday night, I'm at my house watching a basketball game with Derek and a pizza. You know, basically our new Thursday tradition, when someone rings the doorbell. Derek goes to open it because I'm comfortable on the couch and don't want to get up. And I hear him say, James, it's for you," with a weird tone in his voice. I get up, go to the door, and there's Isabella, crying, with red and swollen eyes, smudged makeup, honestly looking like a mess. She starts talking fast, almost yelling, saying, "Please, James, just give me 5 minutes. I need to explain everything to you. I made mistakes, but I love you. You're the only one." And I just stood there in the doorframe, blocking the entrance, because I knew that if I let her in, it was going to be harder to get her out. I told her very calmly, "Isabella, you already had your chance to explain. I already listened to you. My answer is still no. You need to leave." And she started begging, literally on her knees at my entrance, saying she'd do anything, that she'd go to therapy, that she'd change. All that desperate garbage people say when they realize they really screwed everything up. Derek came out and stood next to me, like silent moral support. And I told Isabella, "Look, I'm not going to have this conversation with you here at my door. I already made my decision. You made yours when you asked for that break and went out with other guys. Now you have to live with the consequences. Please leave." She kept crying and saying she couldn't live without me, that she'd ruined the best thing she had. And honestly, in that moment, I felt more pity than anger, because she looked so pathetic out there, completely disarmed, but I wasn't going to change my mind. I told her, "Isabella, if you don't leave, I'm going to have to call the police." And finally she stood up, looked at me with that face of, "I can't believe you're doing this to me," and went to her car. I watched her drive away and closed the door, and Derek patted me on the shoulder and said, "Well done, brother. I know it wasn't easy, but you did the right thing." And he was right. It wasn't easy, because part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for her, but the bigger part, the part that had dignity and self-respect, knew that letting her come back would be the biggest mistake of my life. After that night, I put her number on silent, not blocked because I wanted to know if she kept trying to contact me, but silenced so it wouldn't interrupt my peace. The following months were probably the best I'd had in a long time. It sounds weird to say it, but my life improved significantly after Isabella left. I had more time for myself, for my hobbies, for my friends. I rediscovered things I liked to do but had stopped doing because I was in a relationship. I started going to the gym regularly, not to impress anyone, but because I really enjoyed how I felt afterward. I enrolled in a certification course at my work that I'd been putting off. Basically, I invested in myself in ways I hadn't done in years. My sister, who lives about 2 hours away, came to visit me one weekend and told me I looked different, lighter, happier, and I told her the whole story with Isabella. She hugged me and said, "James, I'm so proud of you for standing firm. Many men would have gone back to her just for the familiarity or fear of being alone, but you knew your worth." And she was right. I knew my worth, and I wasn't going to lower it for anyone. I started planning trips I'd always wanted to take, but Isabella never wanted to. Like I wanted to go to Japan, and she always said it was too expensive or too far, so I started saving to go alone next year. I went out more with my friends, had video game nights that lasted until 3 a.m. without anyone telling me it was irresponsible or immature. Basically, I got my freedom back and realized how much I'd missed it without knowing it. About 3 months after all the drama, Helen, the nosy neighbor, told me Isabella had lost her job. I don't know if it was for poor performance or what, but apparently she no longer worked at that marketing company. She also told me she'd moved to an apartment on the other side of town, in an area that's not exactly the best, like one of those zones where you wouldn't walk alone at night. Part of me felt some pity, because nobody deserves to go through hard times. But honestly, it wasn't my problem. She made her decisions, and I made mine. Now, almost a year after all this happened, I'm in a completely different place. I got a promotion at work that comes with a considerable raise. My house is exactly how I want it, without having to compromise with anyone else's tastes. I have my routines and my spaces and my peace of mind. I go out when I want, do what I want, and don't have to explain or justify anything to anyone. I've gone out with a couple of girls casually, nothing serious yet because honestly I'm not in a rush, but it's refreshing to meet new people without all the emotional baggage of the past. Derek asked me recently if I ever regret how I handled things with Isabella, if I ever think about what would have happened if I'd given her another chance. And the honest answer is no, not one bit. Because at the end of the day, someone who really values you doesn't put you in a situation where you have to be their plan B, doesn't make you feel like an option among several. Isabella showed her true character when she asked for that break. And although it hurts to see the true nature of someone you thought you knew, it's better to know it sooner rather than later. The last time I heard anything about her was about 2 months ago. My sister told me she saw her at the supermarket and that Isabella asked her about me. Apparently she asked if I was dating anyone, if I was okay, if I ever talked about her. And my sister told her something like James is doing really well, better than ever, and left. I don't know what Isabella expected to hear, maybe that I was devastated and missing her or something, but the reality is, I'm living my best life without her, and that's the truth. I guess the lesson in all this, if there is one, is that you have to know your worth and not let anyone treat you as less than you deserve. It doesn't matter how long you were with someone. It doesn't matter how much history you shared. If that person doesn't respect you enough to be honest with you and treat you with dignity, then they're not worth keeping in your life. And yes, it hurts. It's uncomfortable. There are moments of loneliness and questioning. But at the end of the day, choosing yourself is always going to be the right decision. Now, when I think about Isabella, I don't feel anger or resentment. Honestly, I just feel indifference. And I think that's the biggest sign that I really moved on. She was an important part of my life for 5 years. But those 5 years ended, and I'm completely fine with that. My life is mine again, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.